Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 30th of March. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert was convicted by the Jerusalem District Court this morning, which found him guilty of committing fraud and breach of trust in the retrial of the Talansky affair. The politician's attorneys have already announced their intention to appeal the verdict. We get the latest from IBA's R.A. O'Sullivan.
Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert already faces a 6-year prison term for another corruption conviction. But now, the Jerusalem District Court has reversed an acquittal of a 2012 case, this time convicting him of taking illegal payments from U.S. businessman Boris Talansky over a dozen years ago. The retrial came after the Supreme Court sent the case back for a second round, following new evidence based on recordings, a journal, and testimony by Olmert's former top aide and confidant, Shula Zaken. Zaken turned state's witness in a plea bargain, saying Olmert accepted cash-filled envelopes from Talansky, who hoped to further his business interests in Israel. She also released recordings of Olmert paying her an annual stipend of $30,000. Zaken said Olmert also used the funds kept in a secret safe for expensive cigars, tailored suits, and dry cleaning. In the previous trial, Olmert admitted in court to receiving the money, but said it was for permitted political purposes. Reacting to the verdict, State Prosecutor Uri Korb said the fight against corruption was a long one, and this was not a happy day for the State of Israel. He assumed that the state would seek a prison term for Olmert. Olmert's lawyer, Eli Zohar, maintains the line that Zaken was lying and that the use of the funds was permissible. His legal team said they would appeal the conviction to the Supreme Court. "We're sorry for the decision, and we are sorry for the man," Zohar said. Olmert, who served as prime minister from 2006 to 2009, is currently appealing a conviction for bribery in the Holy Land affair, in which he was sentenced last year to 6 years in prison. Olmert's conviction today should be seen as a warning to members of the new 20th Knesset that political corruption doesn't pay. Ariel O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Nuclear negotiations in Switzerland continue today in a last-ditch effort by the West to reach a framework accord with Iran by tomorrow's stipulated deadline for a preliminary agreement ahead of a comprehensive deal by the end of June. We get more in this report from IBA's Margot Dukevich.
Ministers from the 6 world powers held their first full session in Lausanne today in a frenzied bid to reach a preliminary deal with Iran before tomorrow's deadline that will pave the way for a full agreement by the end of June. Yesterday afternoon, the media was rife with rumours that the P5+1 countries, the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China, were on the verge of signing a deal with the Islamic Republic. Iranian officials quickly denied the claims. Iranian negotiator Saeed Abbas Araghchi told reporters the talks were in the final stages, which he described as critical. Unnamed Western diplomats cautioned that despite intensive efforts to bridge the differences, the negotiations could still fall apart. Last night, Britain's Foreign Minister Philip Hammond insisted no compromises would be made.
We're here because we believe a deal can be done. It's in everybody's interest that a deal does get done, but it has to be a deal which puts the bomb beyond Iran's reach. There can't be any compromise about that. So if we're going to get this done here over the next few hours, Iran has got to take a deep breath and make some tough decisions to ensure that those red lines can be met. And I very much hope that we will have success over the coming hours.
According to Western officials, a number of obstacles have yet to be overcome. Reports out of Lausanne suggest the Islamic Republic has agreed to the West's demand to keep less than 6,000 centrifuges, but has refused to ship out its stockpiles of enriched uranium for safekeeping to Russia. Tehran is also insisting it be allowed to continue operating the Fordo nuclear plant for scientific and research needs, and is also demanding that any agreement be conditional to the immediate lifting of sanctions imposed by the West, who are insisting they be lifted gradually over a stipulated period of time. Iran has reportedly tentatively agreed that an accord would last for 15 years. Another condition Tehran has yet to agree to is allowing UN inspectors to conduct surprise visits to its nuclear sites. No mention has so far been made concerning the Iraq heavy water plant. If the talks collapse without a preliminary deal being struck by the end of tomorrow, the deadline for an initial agreement, will the West agree to yet another extension in a bid to strike a permanent agreement with Tehran by the end of June? Or will we see a total breakdown in talks, possibly signifying the inability of the West to reach a diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear threat? Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Iran wants to dominate the Middle East, and the current situation in Yemen is further proof of its aggression. So a bad nuclear deal with Tehran must be prevented at all costs. That's the message from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who received strong support from visiting U.S. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
This is correctly seen by all the countries in the Middle East as a strategic move to dominate the region. And therefore we are witnessing something quite unprecedented. And as Israel and the Arab countries see Iran progressing with its aggression to conquer Yemen and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, talks continue as usual in Lausanne on a deal that, from everything that we hear, paves Iran's way to the bomb. Will this increase or decrease Iran's aggression? Will the fact that Iran will have now, while it's still having sanctions, doesn't yet have an easy path to the bomb, it is conquering the Middle East in ways that are unprecedented. Will this make their move forward more moderate, or will it make it more extreme? I think it's a no-brainer. But this is happening before our eyes. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that Iran doesn't get a path to the bomb, and that Iran's aggression in Yemen and elsewhere, including around Israel's borders, is stopped.
Mr. Prime Minister, let me add on our behalf. First, we were all extraordinarily impressed with your address to the joint session a few weeks ago. Number two, I want to assure all Israelis that the U.S.-Israel relationship is still, no matter what's been said in recent weeks, in very, very strong shape on a bipartisan basis in the U.S. Congress. The group who are here share your concerns about this potential agreement, and there are options that the United States has in the wake of an agreement and if there is no agreement. The option, if there's an agreement, is a bill that we intend to vote on that enjoys bipartisan support to require that agreement to come to Congress for approval. If there's no deal, then the view of this group, similar to your own, is that ratcheting up sanctions might be the best direction to take in the wake of a deal that does not come together.
Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives John Boehner will also be visiting Israel this week. Ahead of his departure, the Republican congressman from Ohio told CNN that he's glad that he invited Prime Minister Netanyahu to address the joint session in March, and he also understands Netanyahu's pre-election comments about a two-state solution with the Palestinians.
Let's talk about Israel. You're going to be traveling there this coming week. This has been described as a victory lap that you were going to take because of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's win there, his re-election win. How do you react to that?
My visit there was planned months ago, before the Prime Minister came here and before his re-election. So it's not quite what I would describe as a victory lap. There are serious issues and activities going on in the Middle East. And I think it's critically important for members of Congress to hear from foreign leaders, other governments, other parts of their government, to get a real handle on the challenges that we face there.
But you know that perception is reality oftentimes in politics and in global politics especially. There is some symbolism you going there, whether it was planned months ago or not at this time.
There's a strong relationship between America and Israel, a very strong relationship between the United States Congress and Israel. And I think over the last several months that relationship has been strengthened. And frankly, part of my goal in going to Israel is to continue to strengthen the relationship that we have between America and Israel.
You're going to speak
They're an important ally.
Are you going to speak to the Knesset the way you invited the Prime Minister to speak here?
No, I don't need all the fanfare.
The Prime Minister, right before his re-election, disavowed a two-state solution. Then right afterwards, he said, never mind, and he took it back. You know, political rhetoric and campaign rhetoric, but even for a politician, wasn't this a little brazen?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Well, he doesn't have a partner. How do you have a two-state solution when you don't have a partner in that solution, when you don't have a partner for peace, when you've got when the other state is vowing to wipe you off the face of the earth. And so until there's a willing partner, willing to sit down and have peace talks, I think it's irrelevant whether we're talking about two-state solution.
Well, but it's still an aspirational goal, right? So are you saying that you don't think that there should be a Palestinian state?
I think it's an aspirational goal. I think when the Prime Minister kind of walked back his comments, he realized it's an aspirational goal, but we're nowhere close to having anything like it, because you've got Hamas controlling what goes on Gaza, and they don't seem to be interested in peace.
But you still believe in a two-state solution, correct? Do you believe in a Palestinian state?
Yeah, as long as you've got a willing partner willing to hold up their end of the deal.
The White House doesn't believe the Prime Minister. Can you blame the White House and the President for not believing what he's saying on where his position is on this?
I think the animosity exhibited by our administration toward the Prime Minister of Israel is reprehensible. And I think that the pressure that they've put on him over the last 4 or 5 years have frankly pushed him to the point where he had to speak up. I don't blame him at all for speaking up.
But a lot of people blame you for the rift being much deeper because you invited the Prime Minister here to speak. There was already trouble, but that you fueled that fire.
I had one goal, and that goal was to make sure that the American people heard and the Congress heard about the serious threat that Iran poses not only to the Middle East, but for the rest of the world, including the United States. And there's nobody can talk more clearly about this. The President doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about the threat of radical Islam and the fact that he has no strategy to deal with it. And when you begin to see all these leaks that probably came out of the White House in terms of what the Iranian deal was starting to shape up to be, there's a lot of concern in Congress on a bipartisan basis, and I'm glad that he was here. And frankly, the speech he gave was the clearest speech I've heard in 25 years about the real threats that face our country.
Just ask you a counterintuitive question. Do you think that you might have a role in repairing the rift now, particularly since you're going to Israel?
Listen, I'm the most open, transparent guy here in this town, and I'm going to be myself, and if there's anything I can do to repair it, I'd be happy to do it.
Turning now to coalition talks, and Kulani Party representatives finally came to the negotiating table with the Likud, although the new faction's leader, Moshe Kahlon, is reportedly still making demands to affect the social and economic changes that he seeks. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
Representatives of Kulani met last night with the Likud coalition team and said afterward that the talks were held in a good atmosphere, in which the two sides discussed the tools necessary for economic growth, to lower housing prices and cost of living, to reduce social disparities, and bring about prosperity of the economy and society for the benefit of all citizens of Israel. Following his refusal to meet the negotiating team last Thursday, Kulani chairman Moshe Kahlon said that his party's only wish was to help out the weaker sectors of society. But he warned that if Kulani was not given the tools to do so, they would not be in the coalition. We want one thing, to succeed where others have failed, Kahlon said at a meeting of Kulani Party activists. We are negotiating with clean hands. We have not asked for anything, neither positions, nor to take advantage of the situation. We came with honesty, integrity, and humility, and said to give us the tools to take care of the disadvantaged populations, the students, the elderly. Do not leave us with the responsibility, but without the authority. Kahlon then said that if he cannot solve the housing crisis when given the tools to do so, quote, I will not wait to be fired. I will go on my own. We are coming to take action, not to talk. Meanwhile, the Haredi Shas party is also currently in talks to join the coalition. One Shas official involved in the negotiations said talks could conclude by Passover Eve, which is this Friday. We fundamentally agree on diplomacy, the official said. On social issues, it appears that Netanyahu is looking to establish a socially minded government. But the question of ministerial portfolios is a little trickier, the official admitted. Both Shas and Bayit Yehudi want the religious services ministry. The Likud team also met last night with the negotiators of United Torah Judaism, the third meeting held with both Haredi parties. The Likud mediator said both Haredi parties have been expediting talks in a serious manner in an effort to complete them quickly. The Likud does not intend to hold a second meeting with Bayit Yehudi's team until tomorrow and Yisrael Beitenu on Wednesday. In the meantime, the 20th Knesset gets sworn in tomorrow at 4 o'clock, along with Yuli Edelstein for another term as Knesset Speaker. Erin?
Thanks for that report. And due to live coverage of the opening of the 20th Knesset tomorrow, IBA News will be shown at our special broadcast time of 5:30 p.m. In other news, a delegation from the Zaka Emergency Response Organization traveled to the Germanwings crash site in the French Alps this morning. The 8 volunteers will help in the search and recovery mission in the area, where all 150 passengers and crew aboard Flight 9525 are believed to have died upon impact. In addition to helping local teams, Zaka members are also tasked with recovering the remains of Eyal Baum of Hoda Sharon and return them home for a Jewish burial. The Baum family received permission from the carrier's parent company, Lufthansa, for the Zaka delegation to participate in recovery efforts. French and German officials are continuing the investigation to establish the motives of co-pilot Andreas Lubitz, who is believed to have locked the captain out of the cockpit and then deliberately brought the plane down as it flew from Dusseldorf to Barcelona. A happier note, Tel Aviv was recently named one of the world's best culinary locations, and it's long been known as an epicenter of nightlife. But who knew that that reputation dates back 5,000 years? We get more in this report. Archaeologists have just uncovered fragments of pottery vessels once used to make beer between 3,500 and 3,000 years before the Common Era.
We found about hundreds of pottery shells in this site, but what is special in this site that we, for first time in Tel Aviv, in the early Bronze Age, we found some pits which belongs to the Egyptian people who settled here in about 5,000 years ago.
The shards were discovered in the heart of the modern city at 17 separate pits used by ancient Egyptians as storage facilities that were unearthed during recent construction for an office building. Beer was considered a national drink of the ancient Egyptians and was consumed by the entire population, including those of all ages, genders, and status. The large ceramic basins were used to mix barley and water and then placed in the strong Mediterranean sun to ferment. The relic's discovery surprised archaeologists because it's the first evidence that the Egyptians moved so far north into Israel. Until now, previous artifacts only showed them reaching the northern Negev and the southern coastal plain. According to Bar Khan, we now know that the ancient civilization also appreciated what the Tel Aviv region had to offer, and that they also knew how to enjoy a glass of beer, just as people in the coastal city do today. Local microbrewery owner David Cohen says that he's excited to know about the discovery.
I have a microbrewery 2 blocks from here called the Dancing Camel, and we brew beers for the most part where we try to use local ingredients as much as possible, and any clues that I can possibly get from the archaeologists here, I'd be happy to understand what kind of beer they were making here.
And now we know why Tel Aviv is often called the city that never sleeps. Cheers! Well, the countdown to the holiday of Passover has already begun, and students at the Technion Institute of Technology in Haifa have created the ultimate Rube Goldberg Pesach machine that illustrates highlights of the story behind the Festival of Freedom. Pretty cool. Now, the nation's drivers may want to stop and fill up their gas tanks before midnight tomorrow when fuel prices are set to go up 6 agorot a liter. The new price for the liter of 95 octane at the self-service pump is going to be 6 shekels and 52 agorot. This is the second consecutive month that the cost of gasoline has risen, following a 5-year low at the start of February. Experts say that the reason for the current increase on world markets is due to the conflict in Yemen. Another local finance, the shekel today increased in strength against all major foreign currencies, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were also up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us to expect light rain in the north tonight that will spread along the coast tomorrow morning and then throughout the country down to the northern Negev by tomorrow night. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., our special broadcast time due to the opening of the 20th Knesset. Don't forget, that's 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. See you then. I'm Erin Viner wishing you a wonderful evening and shalom from Jerusalem.